Speak Daily English. Real English every day.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Speak Daily English, your go-to resource for mastering practical English in the real world. I'm Alex.
And I'm Anna. We're so excited to have you join us today for what might be our most requested topic ever, mastering English conversation fluency through dynamic listening practice.
Anna, before we dive in, let me ask you something. Have you ever had that frustrating experience where you've been studying English for years, but when a native speaker starts talking, it still sounds like they're speaking at lightning speed?
Oh my goodness, yes. And it's not just beginners who struggle with this. I've met advanced English learners who can write beautiful essays but freeze up completely in actual conversation.
Exactly. And that's why today's session is so important. We're going to bridge that gap between passive knowledge and active conversation skills.
That's right. We'll be sharing practical, actionable techniques that will transform how you listen to and engage with English. By the end of this episode, you'll have a complete toolkit for developing natural English conversation fluency.
And here's our promise to you. These aren't just theoretical concepts. Everything we share today can be implemented immediately, even if you only have 15 minutes a day to practice.
So whether you're struggling to understand different accents, can't keep up with natural conversation speed, or just want to take your English fluency to the next level, this episode is for you.
Let's get started with understanding why there's such a big gap between classroom English and real-world conversation.
Yeah, I often see this fundamental misunderstanding about how fluency actually develops. So many learners think, okay, if I just memorize enough words, enough grammar rules, conversation will just sort of happen.
Right. That's such a common thought. But it's a bit like, well, it's like thinking you can become a fantastic swimmer just by reading books about swimming technique, but never actually hopping in the pool.
Exactly. You can know all the theory, right? But without that practical application, that real doing it, fluency just stays out of reach.
Mm-hmm.
And for English conversation, the water, so to speak, is listening. It's really the absolute foundation. Everything else builds on that. If you can't properly understand what's being said, well, you can't really respond effectively, can you?
So true.
Yeah.
So what are the big reasons then? Why do learners often hit this wall with listening, even if they've put hours into vocab and grammar?
Well, based on my experience working with learners, I see three main barriers pop up again and again. First, there's what I call the speed gap.
Okay.
Classroom English. It's often slowed down, super clearly articulated. But real conversations, they happen at natural speed, sometimes really fast, with all the ums and ahs and variations.
There's definitely not textbook speed.
Not at all. Then there's the predictability gap. Textbooks have these neat, tidy dialogues. They follow patterns, easy to guess what's next.
Right.
But real talk, it's messy, interruptions happen, people use slang, conversations take sharp turns you didn't expect, people talk over each other.
Much more dynamic.
Totally. And the third one, which is critical, is the emotional gap. Real conversations aren't just about the words. There's so much meaning in the tone of voice, the volume, the rhythm, the pauses.
The subtext.
Exactly, the subtext. And that richness, it's often missing from standard learning stuff. So learners struggle to pick up on that deeper meaning in context.
Something I've seen constantly over the years teaching is students getting stuck trying to translate everything word for word in their heads.
Oh, absolutely.
English comes in, gets translated to their native language, they formulate a response there, then translate it back into English.
Yeah.
It's exhausting and way too slow for a real conversation.
That's such a crucial point. Fluent conversation, it's not about translation. It's about direct, sort of holistic comprehension. You hear, how's it going? And you just understand it instantly without mentally breaking it down.
And that's precisely where dynamic listening comes in, isn't it? It helps you build that automatic, that holistic understanding. It lets you process and respond naturally without that slow internal translation step.
Exactly. So let's dig into that. How do we actually shift from just hearing English passively to actively engaging with it in a way that genuinely builds that conversation fluency?
Yeah, because it's important to be clear here. Dynamic listening is really different from what a lot of people think is practice. Like just having English on in the background.
Right, that passive consumption trap. You're maybe driving or cleaning or doing something else, and English is just there. Your brain isn't fully locked in, not really processing it deeply. You might catch a word here and there, but real learning, probably not happening.
Mm-hmm. Dynamic listening, on the other hand, it's active. It's focused. It's intentional. You're not just hearing it, you're actively working with it, trying to understand deeply.
And that active part is so vital. Neurologically speaking, it creates stronger connections in your brain. That means better memory for the language and more natural automatic recall when you're actually trying to speak.
It explains why someone could, say, watch English movies for years, right? Consume hundreds of hours,
Yeah.
but still find themselves totally tongue-tied in a simple chat. There was no active processing happening.
Exactly. So dynamic listening bridges that gap. It trains your brain to handle English in a more integrated way, looking at context, understanding, meaning more like a native speaker does, instead of just decoding word by word.
Okay, so this sounds powerful. What are some specific techniques? How can someone start doing this dynamic listening right now?
Well, I find it helpful to think about it in 3 progressive levels, makes it less daunting.
Okay, I like levels.
First, there's immersive audio. This is really about training your ear to the basic sounds and rhythms of natural English, getting comfortable with how it flows.
Got it. Ear training first.
Second, we move into shadowing. Now, this is a game changer, I think. It directly connects listening to speaking.
Okay, bridging the gap.
And third, interactive practice. This is where you start simulating the back and forth of real conversations, preparing for the unpredictable.
Okay, immersive audio, shadowing, interactive practice, a great framework. Let's start with level 1 then, immersive audio. How does that work?
So immersive audio is basically about surrounding yourself with authentic English. The goal is to get your ear used to how the language actually sounds when native speakers use it naturally. You want to recognize those common patterns, the rhythm, the flow.
And you mentioned authentic materials. That seems key, not the simplified stuff.
Exactly. You need content made for native speakers. That's where you'll hear the real deal, the speed, the slang, the accents, podcasts, TV shows, YouTube videos, anything natural.
So what's a good technique to start with? Just listen.
A really effective method I recommend is what I call focused immersion. It's quite structured. You pick a short audio clip, maybe just 2 or 3 minutes long, something with clear audio.
Okay, short and clear. Then what?
First pass, just listen. No subtitles, no transcript. See what you can catch naturally. Don't stress about understanding every single word. Just get the gist.
Okay, low pressure first.
Then listen again, maybe this time with English subtitles if they're available. Notice what you missed the first time. See how the written words connect to the sounds.
Ah, okay. Building layers of understanding.
Precisely. And for a third listen, try following along with a transcript if you can find one. Now, pay really close attention to those connected speech things, how words blend together.
Like, did you eat yet? Becoming did you eat yet? That kind of thing.
Exactly like that. Or going to, becoming gonna. Those little linkages and reductions are everywhere in spoken English, and training your ear to catch them is absolutely vital for understanding native speakers at speed.
Makes sense. What about choosing content? Any tips there?
Yeah, for beginners, I'd say start with things that are pretty clearly spoken, maybe news broadcasts or certain podcasts known for clear articulation. As you get more comfortable, then definitely move towards more casual stuff, conversations between friends on a show, maybe interviews with overlapping speech. That really mimics real life.
Good advice. Now, a big hurdle for many is accents, right? American, British, Australian, Scottish. It can feel overwhelming.
Oh, for sure. Accents are a real challenge, but you can tackle it systematically. One approach I've found really effective is deliberate exposure. Pick one accent, say Australian English, and focus on listening only to that for a whole week.
Immerse yourself in just that one sound.
Yeah, really tune your ear to its specific rhythm and sounds. Then the next week, switch. Maybe focus on Scottish English, or perhaps a regional American accent like Southern. Doing it week by week like this helps your brain adapt much faster than just randomly hearing different accents all the time.
That's a great strategy. Are there good places to find specific accent samples?
Oh, definitely. YouTube is fantastic for this. There are channels dedicated just to showcasing different accents. You can find lots of examples easily.
Perfect. Okay, so once your ear's getting tuned in with immersive listening, what's next? You mentioned shadowing.
Yes, shadowing. This is where we actively start connecting that listening skill to your own speaking. It's incredibly powerful for developing natural rhythm and pronunciation. It really bridges that gap.
So explain shadowing. What exactly does it involve? It sounds a bit mysterious.
Haha, it does sound a bit cloak and dagger, doesn't it? But it's simple, really. Shadowing means listening to a native speaker, and then repeating what they say almost immediately after them, like you're their echo or their shadow.
So not waiting for them to finish the sentence.
Exactly. There's minimal delay. You're trying to speak along with them, mimicking not just the words, but their intonation, their rhythm, the stress patterns, everything simultaneously.
Wow, okay. That sounds intense, but I can see how it would work. Like verbal mirroring.
That's a perfect way to put it, verbal mirroring. And what it does is it trains your brain for that simultaneous processing, listening, and speaking at the same time, which is exactly what you need to do in a fast-paced, real conversation. It's a huge benefit.
It forces your brain out of that translate then speak mode.
Absolutely. It pushes you into real-time operation. So how do you actually do it? I recommend a step-by-step approach that's worked well for many learners I've coached.
Okay, break it down for us.
First, pick a short clip. Really short this time, like 30 seconds is plenty to start. Make sure the speech is clear.
Short and clear again. Got it.
Listen to it a few times first, just to get familiar with the content, the speaker's pace, how they sound.
Okay, familiarize yourself.
Then start by just mumbling along quietly. Don't worry about getting every sound perfect yet. Just try to catch the rhythm, the musicality of it.
Get the feel for it first.
Exactly. Then gradually increase your volume. Start speaking more clearly, trying to match the speaker's pace and intonation as closely as possible. Really imitate them.
I imagine that also helps physically, like with how you move your mouth.
It absolutely does. As you mimic the sounds, your mouth, your tongue, your jaw, they're physically learning the movements needed for those English sounds. Your muscles are getting trained.
That's brilliant. Any pro tips for shadowing?
Yes. Record yourself. This is crucial. Record yourself shadowing the clip and then listen back, comparing it to the original audio.
The comparison reveals the gaps.
Precisely. You'll hear exactly where your rhythm is off or where your pronunciation differs. It allows for really targeted improvement. You know exactly what to work on next time.
Makes total sense. What kind of content is good for shadowing?
TED Talks are often great. Speakers are usually clear, articulate, but still sound natural. Audiobooks can work well too, especially if you have the text to follow along. And for more advanced practice, pick scenes from TV shows with lots of back and forth dialogue. Those quick exchanges are perfect.
Okay, so shadowing builds that production bridge.
Yeah.
But for real fluency, you mentioned needing interactive practice, level 3.
Exactly. Shadowing is fantastic, but conversation is a two-way street, right? Interactive practice is where you simulate that dynamic exchange and prepare for the unpredictability of real talk. This is where it all starts coming together.
Right, because real conversations don't follow scripts. You need to react in the moment.
Precisely. That's the core idea. Your listening skills need to work dynamically, responding to whatever comes your way.
So what kind of interactive exercises work well?
One technique I find incredibly effective is response practice.
Response practice.
Yeah.
Okay, how does that work?
It's pretty straightforward. You listen to a piece of audio where someone asks a question or makes a statement. Then you hit pause.
Pause it. Okay.
And you formulate your own response out loud. Say what you would naturally say if you were actually in that conversation. Then you unpause the audio and listen to how the native speaker in the recording responded.
I see. So you practice formulating your response under pressure, and then you get immediate feedback by hearing a native example.
Exactly. It simulates that real-time mental juggling. Listen, comprehend, think, respond, all under that time constraint you feel in real chats. It's fantastic training for your brain.
That sounds really practical. What else?
Another one is prediction practice. This one's more about anticipating the flow. As you're listening to a conversation, maybe a podcast or a scene, pause it regularly.
Okay, pause again.
And try to predict what the speaker is going to say next.
Yeah.
Or how the other person might reply. Or just where the conversation is heading.
Interesting. How does predicting help?
It trains your brain to recognize common conversational patterns and structures. You start to anticipate turns of phrase, logical next steps. This makes it much easier to follow fast-paced dialogue because you're kind of mentally one step ahead, anticipating the flow.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like you're actively engaging with the structure, not just the words.
Yeah. Now, a big question always comes up. What if you don't have someone to practice with? How do you do interactive practice alone?
Yeah, that's a common challenge for learners.
Well, language exchange apps are amazing these days. Platforms where you can connect with native English speakers learning your language. Perfect for this. You can text, send voice messages, even do video calls. It's real interaction.
Okay, use the tech. Good idea.
And honestly, don't underestimate talking to yourself in English.
Really?
Seriously. Have imaginary conversations. Play both roles. Ask yourself questions and answer them. It might feel a bit weird at first, but it's incredibly effective because you are actively producing language in a conversational context, even if it's just with yourself.
I've actually heard of learners having great success just narrating their day out loud in English.
Yes, that's a brilliant example. Just simple things like, okay, now I'm chopping the onions for dinner. These onions are strong, making my eyes water a bit. You're constantly activating the language, making it automatic, integrating it into your actual life.
So those interactive practices build that real-time skill, and you said they lead into the final stage,
Yeah.
role-playing.
Exactly. Role-playing is where you take all these listening and interactive skills and apply them in the most realistic practice possible, short of actually being in the situation. It's the culmination.
It really feels like the ultimate practice ground then, combining everything.
It is, and what makes role-playing so powerful is that it simulates not just the language, but the mental and even emotional pressure of real conversations. You practice dealing with that feeling of being on the spot.
So how do you structure role-playing effectively to maximize listening practice within it?
Good question. It's not just about acting out a scene, it's about setting it up to challenge your listening.
Okay, give us the blueprint.
First, pick common, everyday scenarios, things you're likely to actually encounter. Ordering food, making a doctor's appointment, a job interview, even just chatting about a movie you saw. Keep it relevant to your life.
Makes sense. Real-world relevance.
Then, to add a layer of realism and challenge, create simple character profiles. Maybe one person needs specific information or has a particular goal, like you're booking a hotel room, but you must have a room with a bath, not just a shower, and you need to confirm late checkout. This forces careful listening and specific questioning.
Okay, giving each person a specific task or constraint. I like that.
Exactly. And here's the key for boosting the listening aspect. Deliberately build in listening challenges.
Listening challenges?
Yeah.
Like what?
Well, maybe one person agrees to speak a little faster than usual, or they intentionally use a few idioms or slang terms the other person might need to ask about. Maybe they change the topic unexpectedly mid-conversation.
Oh, mimicking the curveballs real conversations throw at you.
Precisely. You could even add some soft background noise like cafe chatter sounds from online to practice focusing your listening in a distracting environment. That really ups the ante.
That's intense. What about practicing role plays alone?
Still very doable. You can do modified role plays. Watch a TV show scene, pause right before a character is about to speak or respond, and then say your line out loud as if you were that character or interacting with them. Then press play and see how the actual dialogue unfolds.
That's a clever way to insert yourself into existing dialogues.
It really works. And a huge side benefit of all this role playing, whether with a partner or solo, is how it tackles conversation anxiety.
How so?
When you've practiced navigating tricky situations or unexpected questions in a safe role-play environment, facing similar things in the real world feels much less daunting. You've kind of been there, done that.
Builds confidence through simulation.
Exactly. And always remember, the goal in these practices and in real life isn't perfection. It's communication. Native speakers stumble over words, use fillers, make grammar mistakes, but they keep the conversation flowing. Focus on understanding and being understood.
That's such an important reminder. Fluency isn't about being flawless. It's about being comfortable and effective in your communication, mistakes and all.
Couldn't agree more. It's about connection.
Okay, so we've got immersive audio, shadowing, interactive practice, role-playing. To keep all this going, people need resources. Let's talk about some good online tools and platforms that can help.
Absolutely. The internet has just been a game changer for language learning, especially for finding authentic materials and opportunities for this kind of dynamic listening practice. The resources available now are incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing what's out there. And based on what we've seen work for learners, there are definitely some platforms and resource types that really lend themselves well to these specific techniques.
So if someone's just starting out wanting to integrate these ideas, where should they look?
Okay, for level 1 immersive audio, podcasts specifically designed for learners, but using natural, unscripted conversations are brilliant. Some even provide transcripts or vocabulary explanations, which is super helpful. Look for ones that feel like real people talking.
Good starting point. What about for level 2, shadowing?
There are some really neat apps out there now specifically for pronunciation and shadowing. Some let you record yourself mimicking native speaker clips and then give you feedback, sometimes even AI-powered feedback on your accuracy. That's incredibly useful for targeted practice.
Oh, wow. That sounds very helpful. And for level 3, interactive practice, getting that real conversation time.
This is where platforms connecting you with tutors or language partners really shine. Websites where you can book affordable one-on-one sessions with native English speakers are fantastic. You can specifically ask them to focus on conversation practice, giving you that essential real-time interaction.
And of course, YouTube is just a goldmine, isn't it?
Absolutely. So many channels dedicated to pronunciation, explaining specific sounds, intonation patterns. They're perfect companions to your shadowing practice. They help you understand the why behind the sounds you're trying to make.
What if someone wants something a bit more structured, like a guided path?
Some language learning apps are better than others for this. Look for ones that heavily emphasize listening and speaking exercises, often using techniques like spaced repetition for audio phrases. The ones that focus less on just reading writing and more on audio input and spoken output align really well with dynamic listening principles.
And streaming services, can't forget those.
Definitely not. Watching TV shows or movies with English subtitles on crucial distinction, not your native language, is fantastic. It connects the sounds you hear with the written words, reinforcing everything.
And one specific tool I always recommend is Youglish. Have you used that?
Oh yeah, Youglish is brilliant. You type in any word or phrase.
And it instantly shows you multiple YouTube video clips where native speakers are using that exact phrase in real context. It's unbeatable for understanding how expressions are actually used naturally, with different intonations and in different situations.
So many great resources. But the absolute key with any of them is consistency. Right?
100%. 10 or 15 minutes of focused, dynamic practice every day will genuinely move the needle, much more than trying to cram in 2 hours just once a week. Little and often is the secret sauce for building fluency.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
So speaking of consistency, let's make this really concrete. How about we lay out a simple 30-day action plan, something listeners can start today?
Love it. A practical plan to put all these ideas into action makes it feel achievable.
Okay, week 1, focus entirely on building that immersive audio foundation. Just 10 to 15 minutes a day using that focused immersion technique we talked about. Start with short clips, maybe increase the length a bit by the end of the week as your ear starts tuning in.
Solid start. Week 2. Introduce shadowing. Keep doing the immersive listening, but add 5 minutes of shadowing practice each day. Just 5 minutes to start, maybe work up to 10 minutes. Focus on mimicking the rhythm and intonation. It's about building that physical speaking habit alongside listening.
Okay, building on week 1, week 3, time for interactive practice. Aim for at least 3 sessions during the week, maybe 15 minutes each, where you actively practice conversation. Use a language exchange app, talk to a tutor, even practice the response or prediction techniques with audio clips. The goal is active engagement and response.
Getting into the real back and forth. And WITS 4. Bring it all together with role-playing. Try to do a couple of role-play sessions this week, either with a partner or solo using the TV show method. Pick scenarios relevant to you, and maybe even try adding one of those listening challenges we discussed, like faster speech or background noise.
That sounds like a really manageable progression. And the great thing is, it's flexible, isn't it? If 15 minutes is too much one day, even 5 minutes of focused practice is way better than skipping it entirely. Daily consistency is the name of the game.
Absolutely. And I'd strongly suggest keeping a simple practice journal. Just jot down what you did each day, maybe one new phrase you learned or a pronunciation point you noticed. Seeing that log grow is really motivating and helps you track what's working.
Good tip. It's important to remember, too, this 30-day plan is about building a foundation and habits. Fluency is a journey, a marathon, not a sprint. These practices, continued over time, are what lead to that real, lasting improvement.
Definitely. And what would you say to someone who starts this, they're motivated, but maybe after a couple of weeks, they hit a plateau or feel discouraged? That happens, right?
Oh, it absolutely happens. It's probably the most common experience. First off, just know that progress isn't a straight line upwards. It zigs and zags. You'll have amazing days where everything clicks, and then days where you feel like you've gone backwards. That is totally normal. Don't let it derail you.
So important to hear that.
And here's a practical tip for that. Record yourself speaking at the very beginning, maybe day 1, just a short introduction or talking about your day. Then record yourself again on day 30 doing the same thing.
The before and after comparison.
Exactly. We often don't notice our own slow, steady improvement day to day. But when you compare those 2 recordings side by side, the difference can be genuinely surprising and give you a huge motivational boost to keep going.
That's a fantastic idea. And finally, don't underestimate the power of community. Connect with other English learners. Share your struggles, your successes. Having that support network makes a huge difference in staying motivated and accountable.
So true. It makes the journey less lonely and more fun.
We've covered so much ground today in our exploration of dynamic listening for English conversation fluency.
And what I love most about these techniques is that they address the real challenges English learners face in conversations. Not just theoretical knowledge, it's practical stuff.
We've learned how to bridge the listening gap through immersive audio techniques, shadowing for pronunciation development, interactive practice for real-time comprehension, and role-playing for practical application. It's a solid toolkit.
If you take just one thing away from today's episode, let it be this. Conversation fluency comes from active engagement, not passive exposure. Your brain needs to process English actively to develop those automatic responses that power natural conversations.
And remember, every native English speaker you meet went through a similar process as a child learning, through listening, mimicking, and practicing in real situations. You're simply following the natural language acquisition process, just maybe a bit more consciously.
So here's your challenge. Commit to the first week of our 30-day plan. Just 10-15 minutes of focused, immersive listening daily. Then come back and let us know how it went in the comments section below. We'd love to hear from you.
And if you found this episode helpful, please share it with friends who are also on their English learning journey. Together, we can build a community of confident English conversationalists.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Speak Daily English. Until next time, keep listening actively and speaking confidently.
See you in our next episode.
Speak Daily English. Real English every day.